Number 15. Albert Allen Challam and Meyer Lehman, in the heart of Coltsneck, a wealthy enclave of horse farms and grand estates in New Jersey. A mansion of secrets stood on Bluebell Road. Behind its imposing black and gold gates, a Grecian fountain stood as a sentry over the evil acts that took place there. It was beneath the gaze of the fountain statue that the bodies of Albert Allen Challam and Meyer Lehman were discovered, their lives brutally extinguished in a hail of bullets. From the start, police believed the crime had the markings of a mob-related hit. Yet despite the significant investigation, the identity of the men's assailant remains unknown. Challam and Lehman, two penny stock promoters known for dubious financial schemes, had drawn the ire of many with their nefarious activities. But as investigators delved into their murky past, they unearthed a labyrinth of deceit and treachery that stretched far beyond the confines of the mansion's walls. The FBI and local authorities were drawn into the fray, their efforts hampered by a lack of concrete evidence and very little that might point them in the direction of the killer. The clues they did find included phone records, trails of blood, and whispered confessions. A potential lead emerged from a cryptic voice message discovered on Challam's answering machine. The brief but urgent message pleaded, "Call me back. Emergency." Investigators believed that the caller might know more about the slayings and was perhaps aware of the impending threat over the lives of Challam and Lehman, and wanted to forewarn them. As the investigation dragged on, alliances shifted and numerous suspects emerged. From Russian gangsters to shady stock deals, every lead seemed to hit a dead end. There seemed to be motive everywhere, and the victims appeared to be keeping many secrets. The last person believed to have seen the men alive was an associate, Joe T. Logan Jr. Though not a suspect, he was at the Bluebell Road mansion that morning and called the house 6 times later that day. Yet the identity of the mystery caller, whose voicemail may have been an attempt to warn of the coming tragedy, and the assailant who carried out the brutal murders, both remain unknown. Information on the murders of Challam and Lehman can be directed to the FBI's Criminal Division at 212-384-1000. Number 14. Voynich Manuscript. The Voynich Manuscript, a secret that has remained unsolved since medieval times, remains one of the most famous and most perplexing puzzles in the history of linguistics and cryptography. Discovered in 1912 by Wilfrid Voynich, a dealer of antique books, this mysterious codex bears his name, but keeps its true origins and authorship veiled in secrecy. Carbon dated to the 15th or 16th century, the manuscript's pages are adorned with intricate illustrations with astronomical, botanical, and anatomical themes, all accompanied by an indecipherable script. This script, now referred to as Voynichese, may be the manuscript's most mysterious feature. Composed of a complex array of characters that mimic the appearance of a written language, it has resisted all efforts at interpretation, fueling speculations that it could be anything, ranging from an elaborate hoax to a lost language of antiquity. Countless hours have been invested by linguists, cryptographers, and codebreakers in effort to unravel the mysteries of Voynichese. Some propose linguistic structures and syntax, while others consider it a fabricated script meant to conceal the true information contained within. Despite extensive endeavors, the script's essence remains an elusive linguistic Gordian knot. The manuscript bursts with detailed depictions of plants, celestial bodies, and female figures, rendered with precision and an apparently robust understanding of the natural world. The botanical section is believed by many to be a compendium of herbal knowledge, detailing the properties and uses of various plants. However, this interpretation remains speculative, as the plants depicted are still unidentifiable. Over time, diverse theories have emerged about the manuscript's purpose and content. Some view it as an alchemical or early scientific text, while others suggest it might be a manual for a forgotten ancient language. More mystical theories propose connections to extraterrestrial knowledge or otherworldly intelligence. Theories about the manuscript range from the plausible to the fantastical, each offering a unique perspective on what this secretive book might represent. One prominent theory suggests that the manuscript contains early medical knowledge. This hypothesis is supported by the detailed botanical and anatomical illustrations, which some believe could represent medicinal plants and studies of human biology. Proponents of this theory argue that the manuscript may have been a compendium of knowledge from an unknown healer or scientist, who took it upon themselves to document herbal remedies and medical practices that were lost to history or even ahead of their time. Another theory posits that the manuscript is alchemical in nature. The strange symbols and diagrams are thought by some to be encoded recipes or processes related to alchemy. The intricate nature of the drawings, particularly those depicting celestial bodies and what could be interpreted as chemical apparatus, lend some credence to this view. This theory is bolstered by the fact that the 15th and 16th centuries were a time when alchemy was widely practiced in Europe. A more esoteric theory suggests that the manuscript could be a work of philosophical or religious symbolism. The bizarre, dreamlike illustrations and the unknown script might represent a form of mystical or even magical knowledge, possibly linked to a secret cult or a mysterious sect. Proponents of this theory often refer to the manuscript's mysterious origins and the possibility that it was meant to be understood only by a select few initiated into its secrets. There are also theories that delve into the realm of the extraordinary. Some suggest that the manuscript could be a documentation of extraterrestrial or otherwise inhuman knowledge. Arguments for this particularly outlandish hypothesis are usually based on the manuscript's inexplicable content, and the argument that some of the plant and astronomical illustrations do not correspond to any known species or celestial configurations on Earth. Lastly, there is the theory that the Voynich manuscript is an elaborate hoax. This perspective argues that the manuscript was created intentionally to baffle and confuse, possibly for financial gain, or as a form of intellectual amusement. Supporters of this theory point to the manuscript's inexplicable script and unidentifiable illustrations as evidence of a deliberate attempt to create an unsolvable mystery. The Voynich manuscript continues to captivate scholars, enthusiasts, and the curious alike. Its enduring mystery stands as a testament to the vast expanse of human knowledge and our relentless quest to unravel historical mysteries. It invites exploration into the unknown and reminds us of the myriad mysteries that still await discovery in our world. This artifact from another time, with its elaborate illustrations and cryptic script, continues to defy understanding. As we leaf through its pages, we are tantalized by the prospect that within its cryptic content lies a message awaiting revelation, a key to a long-lost chapter of human knowledge. Number 13. The Burger Chef Murders. In the quaint town of Speedway, Indiana, nestled in the heartland of America, the Burger Chef restaurant was a stalwart of fast food convenience for locals and travelers alike. But on the evening of November 17, 1978, the familiar glow of its golden signage would be overshadowed by a darkness that would haunt the community for years to come. As the sun dipped below the horizon and the evening rush faded into the night, the Burger Chef was abuzz with activity. Inside, 4 young employees prepared to close up shop for the night. Assistant manager Jane Freed, a 20-year-old with dreams of a bright future, supervised the closing procedures with efficiency and poise. Alongside her were cooks Ruth Shelton, just 17 years old but already showing promise in the kitchen, and Daniel Davis, a 16-year-old with a penchant for flipping burgers with precision. Rounding out the team was Mark Flemons, a 16-year-old cashier known for his quick wit and easy smile. As the clock struck closing time, the team worked diligently to tidy up the restaurant and secure the building for the night ahead. With the last customer finally served and the doors locked behind them, they bid farewell to their coworkers and made their way out into the cool November air. Little did they know, it would be the last time they walked out of those doors. The following morning dawned with a sense of unease as the manager arrived at the Burger Chef to find the restaurant eerily quiet. Upon entering, his worst fears were confirmed. The cash register lay empty, the safe had been tampered with, and the personal belongings of the night shift employees remained untouched. Something was terribly wrong. Frantic, the manager called the police, who quickly descended upon the scene. What began as a routine investigation into a possible break-in soon spiraled into a nightmare when the authorities discovered that Jane, Ruth, Daniel, and Mark had not returned to their respective homes that night. With each passing hour, the sense of dread deepened. Friends and family members anxiously awaited news of their loved ones, their minds racing with terrifying possibilities. It wasn't long before search teams were dispatched to comb the surrounding area for any sign of the missing employees. Then, just when hope seemed all but lost, a grim discovery shattered the community's fragile peace. The bodies of Jane, Ruth, Daniel, and Mark were found in a remote wooded area, their lives brutally cut short in a senseless act of violence. The crime scene told a chilling story of terror and despair. Ruth and Daniel had been shot multiple times, their young lives snuffed out in an instant. Jane had been viciously stabbed, her dreams of a bright future extinguished in a moment of unfathomable cruelty. And Mark, the youngest among them, had been beaten to death, his body left battered and broken. Initial leads and theories ranged from a botched robbery to a personal vendetta, but inconsistencies and the lack of physical evidence stymied the investigation. Various suspects were considered, including known criminals and local troublemakers, but no conclusive evidence was ever found, and no one could be charged with the heinous crime. Over the years, numerous theories have emerged regarding who could have committed the Burger Chef murders. Some theories suggest the involvement of local drug rings or organized crime, while others believe that it was the work of a random assailant. Despite extensive investigations, including the re-examination of evidence and new interviews, the case remains unsolved. Today, the Burger Chef murders still haunt the town of Speedway. The case is revisited periodically by law enforcement, with hopes that new technology or information will shed new light on the perpetrators. The families of the victims, along with the community, continue to seek closure and justice for the senseless loss of 4 young lives. The Burger Chef murders remain a cold case, but many still remember the night that forever changed a small town. Number 12. Dorothy Jane Scott. Dorothy Jane Scott led a life that seemed unremarkable to most. A single mother living in Anaheim, California, and working as a secretary, she was known for her devout church attendance and her peaceful demeanor. A friend lovingly called her dull as a phone book, but her quiet demeanor belied the chilling mystery that would eventually befall her. It all began with a phone call. The voice on the other end was both familiar and menacing, alternating between expressions of love and hate, before descending into outright threats. Dorothy had no idea who the caller was, but she knew he was watching her every move. At first, the calls came relentlessly, day after day, leaving her shaken and fearful for her safety. Despite her terror, Dorothy remained determined to protect herself and her young son. She took up karate for self-defense and even considered arming herself, though she ultimately decided against it. The caller remained enigmatic, never revealing his name or location, but he seemed to know everything about Dorothy, where she lived, where she worked, and even what she wore day to day. Despite her efforts to shield herself and her young son from the caller, Dorothy couldn't escape the suffocating grip of fear and anxiety that followed his calls. She told friends that the voice on the other end of the line was hauntingly familiar, yet she couldn't place it, despite her best efforts. As the calls grew in frequency, Dorothy's sense of dread deepened. She confided in a trusted coworker, sharing details of the menacing calls, but there was no solace to be found. Without knowing the caller, what actions could she take against him? The tension reached a fevered pitch on a strange evening in May 1980. At a routine company meeting, Dorothy's coworker, Conrad, fell ill after being bitten by a black widow spider. Concerned for his well-being, Dorothy and another coworker accompanied him to the hospital, unaware that this act of kindness would seal Dorothy's fate. As she left the hospital to retrieve her car, the stalker finally struck. Dorothy's colleagues were waiting at the entrance of the hospital to pull her car around, and when they saw her white station wagon approaching, they signaled their location to her. But the car careened by, leaving her coworkers stunned and her family with many unanswered questions. The later discovery of her abandoned car only deepened the mystery. In the months that followed, Dorothy's family was tormented by a series of chilling phone calls from the unknown caller, claiming to have killed her and taunting them with details of her disappearance. Despite their best efforts, the police were unable to trace the calls or identify the caller, leaving Dorothy's loved ones to endure an agonizing wait for answers. As the weeks turned into months, the mystery of Dorothy's disappearance only became murkier. Rumors swirled, with some speculating that she had run away or fallen victim to foul play. But her family refused to give up hope, clinging to the belief that Dorothy would one day return home, safe and sound. Then, more than 4 years after her disappearance, a breakthrough finally came. Dorothy's remains were discovered in a remote construction site, bringing a grim end to the agonizing uncertainty that had plagued her loved ones for so long. The discovery brought some closure to her grieving family, but the mystery of her murder remained unsolved. In the years that followed, Dorothy continued to evade justice, leaving her family to grapple with their loss. Though they may never find the closure they seek, Dorothy's memory lives on in the hearts of those who loved her. Despite the passage of time, the memory of Dorothy's disappearance still occupies those who knew her. Dorothy's family has struggled to come to terms with the loss of their beloved daughter, sister, and mother. Dorothy's case remains unsolved, relegated to the cold case files of the Anaheim Police Department. Despite their best efforts, investigators are no closer to identifying her than they had been on the day she disappeared. The passage of time has only served to obscure the truth further, but her friends and family remain hopeful that one day, justice will be served. Number 11. The disappearance of Russell Bowling. Russell Bowling, born to Christine and Roger Bowling on December 29, 1991, enjoyed a serene upbringing alongside his older brothers Andrew and Nigel in East Riding, Yorkshire, England. The family, well bonded and comfortably off, represented the quintessential upper-middle-class household. Post-education, Russell, who had a speech disorder, embarked on a bricklaying course at Bishop Burton College. Tragically, on March 2, 2010, the 18-year-old left his home and was never seen again. That morning, he departed for college dressed more formally than usual, in a black Ben Sherman jacket, blue jeans, and black sneakers. When he didn't return home by the evening, his parents alerted the authorities. On the day he vanished, a Bempton Cliffs Nature Reserve employee noticed Russell's car parked there late into the afternoon. The employee, seeing that Russell had bought a parking ticket at 11:30 a.m., assumed he was simply enjoying his visit and lingering in the preserve. Concern only arose the following day, when the car remained unmoved. Bempton Cliffs, located about a 45-minute drive from Russell's home, seemed an unlikely destination, given his car's limited fuel at the time of his departure and his scant bank balance of less than £10. Despite these constraints, there was no record of Russell refueling, prompting questions about how he reached the cliffs and whether he was accompanied. Further, upon examining his satellite navigation system, his parents discovered unexplained trips to Bradford, Bridlington, and York during the times he told his family he was attending college, leading to speculation about the purpose of these journeys and his mysterious visit to Bempton Cliffs. Bempton Cliffs, known for its natural beauty, also hosts a decommissioned RAF base, which was active during World War II until its shutdown in April 1972. Efforts were made to block public entry to its underground facilities post-closure, resulting in an eerie, abandoned site characterized by a derelict bungalow and a prominent chimney stack. Despite its dilapidated state, the site holds a mysterious allure, particularly due to the provocative and disturbing graffiti found in its tunnels, including explicit and satanic imagery, though the creators of these drawings remain anonymous. There have been rumors and online chatter about the site being used by a satanic cult for rituals in the past, but no concrete evidence supports these claims. It turned out that Russell, intrigued by the bunker's history and the rumored cult activities, had extensively researched the site and collected images related to it, which he kept on a memory stick that was always with him. Despite his family's belief that he had never visited the site, his disappearance raised questions about whether he had gone to explore the bunker that had long fascinated him. Considering Russell's speech disorder, there was concern that he might have been vulnerable to exploitation if he encountered someone with harmful intentions. The mystery deepened as the memory stick he carried, along with its unique images, was never recovered. As the search for Russell unfolded, his family's trust in the police waned, prompting them to finance a thorough search of the bunker nearly 2 years after his disappearance. Despite the concerted effort and the use of specialized equipment, no trace of Russell was found in the bunker. In the years following, despite the site being officially sealed, adventurous individuals have continued to access and explore the bunker, sharing new images of its bizarre and unsettling graffiti online. Before his disappearance, Russell was also performing searches online for the town of Ravenscar, where the family owned a holiday home. This led his parents to wonder if he had planned to visit Ravenscar. In August 2010, the discovery of human feet in the Humber estuary, near Bempton Cliffs, briefly raised the family's hopes for answers. One of the feet had a boot resembling one missing from Russell's belongings, which he was thought to have been wearing. Despite this, forensic tests showed no connection to Russell, deepening the mystery. Confusingly, a pair of Russell's sneakers, previously thought to be missing along with Russell himself, were later found at the Ravenscar holiday home, leading to more questions about his whereabouts or fate. Police developed a different theory based on a voice recording they found, interpreted as a farewell message from Russell, expressing feelings of inadequacy compared to his family and wishing for a countryside burial. This recording, made 3 years prior during a stressful exam period, was known to his parents, who believed Russell had moved past these feelings, especially since starting college. Bempton Cliffs is known as a site where people have tragically ended their lives, leading police to theorize that Russell might have chosen this fate. However, with no body found and his parents claiming that his spirits had improved since he started college, the true reason behind Russell's actions remains unclear. Russell Bowling was set to receive a considerable inheritance from his father, Roger, following a diagnosis of a degenerative brain disease. This inheritance included a house and £300,000, which Russell planned to use to start a business. Roger Bowling's revelation to his sons about his illness and his wish for a dignified end to his life could have deeply impacted Russell. The impending inheritance, meant to secure the future of their Bowling children, might have inadvertently led to stress or unintended consequences for Russell, considering his youth and the significant sum involved. On the day Russell vanished, his family suspected he didn't travel to Bempton Cliffs alone, given the small amount of fuel in his car and his limited finances. To validate their suspicions, Russell's parents replicated his journey with the same fuel level and concluded he must have received assistance to reach the destination, suggesting he met with someone there. The case took a dark turn when illegal images were discovered on the family's computers during the investigation into Russell's disappearance. Roger Bowling faced charges related to the possession of child exploitation images and bestiality content found across multiple devices in the family's home. Despite Roger's claims that he was not responsible for downloading the material, his conviction led to a loss of public sympathy and sparked speculation about the family's dynamics and Russell's state of mind prior to his disappearance. An inquest held in December 2019 concluded that Russell likely died at sea, although it was unclear how he met his fate. The assistant coroner could not determine whether Russell's death was accidental, a result of an asthma attack, or if he had fallen from the cliffs. The lack of evidence left many questions unanswered, haunting the Bowling family with the unresolved details of Russell's last day. Despite the inquest's findings, the Bowling family remained convinced that someone else was involved in Russell's disappearance, suggesting that fear of repercussions might be preventing the individual from coming forward. The unresolved nature of the case and the absence of new leads continue to shroud Russell's fate in mystery, leaving his family and the public to speculate about what truly happened on March 2nd, 2010. Number 10. Brandon Swanson. As the last day of classes wound down at the Minnesota West Community and Technical College, Brandon Swanson, a 19-year-old freshman, was looking forward to the freedom of summer alongside his friends. But before long, Brandon found himself in a predicament. He phoned his parents, Annette and Brian Swanson, shortly after midnight on May 14, 2008, explaining that he had veered off the road while driving in Lind, Minnesota, crashing his car into a ditch. Concerned, his parents set out in their pickup truck on a late-night rescue mission, guided by Brandon's instructions over the phone. He was absolutely positive he knew where he was, Brian recalled. Yet, upon their arrival at the designated spots, their hearts sank as they found no trace of Brandon or his car. Flashing their truck's lights in an attempt to signal him, they searched futilely as Brandon let them know that he was flashing his own in response. "Don't you see me?" he asked through the phone. They saw nothing, and Brandon's whereabouts remained a mystery as the night stretched on. Believing he saw the lights of a nearby town, Brandon kept in touch via phone, traversing fields and fences in the area as he continued to attempt to guide his parents to his approximate location. 47 minutes into this journey, his parents heard what would be his last words through the phone. He shouted an expletive and then suddenly went silent. The call dropped, and further calls his parents made to him went straight to voicemail. As dawn broke, Annette made the agonizing decision to contact the authorities. At first, police allegedly dismissed the report, saying that going off to spend some time away from family was normal young adult behavior after finishing exams, despite the mysterious and concerning circumstances. Eventually, however, police officers joined the frantic search for Brandon. They were able to ping his cell phone, which was still functioning, and triangulated the location of his last call. It was 20 miles from where Brandon had told his parents that he believed he was. Still, their efforts yielded no clues as to his physical whereabouts. Eventually, Brandon's vehicle was found after police started searching the area of that final phone call. In a remote corner of Porter, Minnesota, Brandon's car stood abandoned, leaving only more questions as to what happened to its driver. Investigators combed the scene for clues, but found nothing of substance. And as weeks became months, the trail grew cold. The Swansons refused to give up, and in their continued pursuit of the truth, Brandon's law was passed by state officials in 2009. The law requires police investigations of any missing person to be initiated promptly, regardless of their age. Although it's still a mystery what happened to Brandon Swanson, it has been proposed that he may have fallen into the Yellow Medicine River and drowned. But that's just one theory. Foul play hasn't been ruled out either. Neither his remains, his phone, nor his keys have ever been found. Information about this missing person can be directed to BCA at 651-793-7000. Number 9. Shepherd's Monument Inscription. The Shepherd's Monument, located in Staffordshire, England, has captivated the imaginations of codebreakers, historians, and conspiracy theorists for centuries. Constructed between 1748 and 1763, this structure was commissioned by Thomas Anson, a well-to-do British gentleman, and built by the sculptor Peter Shoemaker. The monument is famed not only for its architectural beauty, but for the perplexing inscription that has baffled experts for over 250 years. The front of the Shepherd's Monument features a relief that is an adaptation of Nicolas Poussin's famous painting, Shepherds of Arcadia. The artwork depicts a pastoral scene with a woman and 3 shepherds gathered around a tombstone, on which is written the Latin phrase, Et in Arcadia ego, translating to, I am also in Arcadia, or, even in Arcadia, there I am. This phrase has been interpreted as a memento mori, a reminder of the inevitability of death. However, the most intriguing and mysterious aspect of the Shepherd's Monument is the inscription, a sequence of letters reading OUOSVAVV, flanked by the letters D and M. This cryptic code has resisted interpretation despite the efforts of numerous scholars, including notable figures like Josiah Wedgwood, Charles Darwin, and Charles Dickens. The letters D and M are widely believed to stand for Dis Manibus, a common dedication to the Roman deities of the underworld, but the meaning of OUSVAVV remains elusive. Theories abound, each more fascinating than the last. One prevalent theory posits that the remaining letters could be an acronym for a Latin phrase, in alignment with Dis Manibus. However, despite various attempts, no convincing Latin phrase that fits this arrangement of letters has been put forth. This theory aligns with the classical influences evident in the monument's design, but offers little in terms of a conclusive explanation. In 1951, an alternative theory was proposed by Morchard Bishop. This theory suggests a more personal connection. Morchard believed that the letters were an initialism for a sentimental Latin phrase, Optime uxoris, optime sororis, vidus amantissimus, vovit virtutibus, or to the best of wives, the best of sisters, a most loving widowed husband dedicates this to your virtues. This interpretation hints at the monument being a loving tribute by Thomas Anson to his deceased wife. But again, conclusive evidence is lacking. Another persuasive theory is the Arcadian shepherd's theory. This draws directly from the Poussin painting that inspired the monument's relief. In the painting, shepherds are pondering a tomb with the inscription Et in Arcadia ego, which reflects the suggestion that death is present even in idyllic settings. Some speculate that the Shugborough inscription could be a continuation of this theme, a cryptic reference to the inevitability of death or an allusion to a hidden tomb or grave, possibly even indicating a location. A more speculative theory connects the inscription to the Knights Templar, a medieval Christian military order. Some enthusiasts of this theory propose that the inscription points to secret knowledge or even treasure passed down by the Templars. The letters are thought to be a code indicating the location of the Holy Grail or another significant religious relic. However, this theory, like others, lacks hard evidence and is often regarded as part of modern myth-making around the Templars. Modern cryptographers and code enthusiasts have also tackled the Shugborough inscription, treating it as a straightforward cipher or coded message. Despite applying various cryptographic techniques, no one has convincingly cracked the code. This ongoing challenge adds a layer of contemporary intrigue to the historical mystery. In addition to the inscription, the monument features two head reliefs. One depicts a smiling, bald human figure, while the other shows a horned head resembling Pan, the Greek god of the wild. These figures add another layer of symbolism and mystery to the monument, fueling further speculation about its true purpose and meaning. The Shepherd's Monument continues to be a subject of fascination and debate, whether it holds a profound secret or is simply a testament to the whimsy of its creator. Its code remains one of the most enduring puzzles in history. Number 8. Kahira Frazee. On the evening of February 23, 2023, in Beaumont, California, 22-year-old Kahira Frazee, who was 8 months pregnant, sat in a van with her mother and stepfather near the drive-thru of the local Jack in the Box. The three had spent the day together, running errands and preparing for the arrival of Kahira's baby boy, expected in just over a month. It had been a day filled with joy, but that joy turned out to be short-lived. As they approached the fast food restaurant, Kahira asked to get out of the car. Her request was unusual, but her mother, Kara, thought little of it at the time, assuming her daughter needed a break or wanted to stretch her legs. The footage from the Jack in the Box later showed Kahira standing alone, her black jacket and gray sweats blending into the night. Kara and her husband watched her through the car window as they ordered their meal. But when they turned back around, she was gone. Kara's husband jumped out of the car, frantically searching the area around the restaurant. He checked behind bushes, looked down side streets, calling out her name, but there was no response. Their panic rose, and the couple quickly called 911 to report their daughter missing. The Beaumont Police Department initially declared her a voluntary missing person due to her age. For weeks, the family was left in the dark. Kahira's loved ones searched for leads, but there was no sign of the pregnant woman. As investigators pieced together the events of that night, doorbell camera footage from nearby businesses provided a crucial clue. The grainy images showed Kahira walking away from the Jack in the Box, heading south behind a row of businesses. The footage revealed her walking alone, with no sign of distress, which was strange as she was excited about her pregnancy and had no discernible reason to walk away from her life. Kara clung to hope, believing that someone had taken her daughter in and was caring for her and her unborn child. "I believe that she's going to get back home," she told Dateline. "God will make a way for her." Despite the lack of evidence suggesting abduction, Kara's faith remained unshaken. As the investigation continued, detectives delved into Kahira's past, looking for any clues that might explain her sudden disappearance. They interviewed family, friends, and acquaintances, but no theories arose. Security footage later released by the Beaumont Police Department showed Kahira walking behind a charter school next to the Jack in the Box, moments before she disappeared from view. This footage was the last visual confirmation of her whereabouts. Kara and her family refused to give up hope. They raised funds to hire a private investigator and created social media pages dedicated to finding Kahira. The public's interest was piqued, and tips began to pour in, but none led to a definitive breakthrough. Despite the extensive search efforts and the family's unwavering determination, Kahira's fate remains a mystery. The Beaumont Police Department has assured the family that they are pursuing every lead. Yet, without clear evidence of foul play or a solid lead on her whereabouts, the case is at a standstill. As another anniversary of her disappearance approaches, the community continues to rally behind the Frise family, their collective hope mirroring Kara's own, a family yearning for answers, and a mother still waiting for her daughter's return. Any information regarding Kahira Frise's disappearance can be directed to the Beaumont Police Department at 951-769-8500. Number 7. The Setagaya Family Murders. In the quiet Tokyo suburb of Setagaya, the final days of the year 2000 held a chilling narrative that would etch itself into the history of Japan's most baffling unsolved crimes. The Setagaya family murder, a case that would challenge authorities despite the startling array of evidence left behind, left its mark on the area forever. The grim tale began on the night of December 30th. The Miyazawa family, residing in a rapidly changing neighborhood, lived a seemingly normal life. Mikio Miyazawa, 44, worked for a British marketing company. His wife, Yasuko, 41, was a tutor. They had 2 children, Nina, an 8-year-old second grader, and Rei, a 6-year-old kindergartner. The family's life appeared tranquil, but this facade of normality was brutally shattered just before the new year. On that fateful night, after 11 p.m., an unknown intruder silently infiltrated the Miyazawa home. The assailant's entry was believed to be through the second-floor bathroom window, as it was found open with the screen removed. The proximity of this window to Rei's bedroom led investigators to theorize that he was the first victim, strangled to death in his bunk bed. The intruder then unleashed a ferocious attack on the rest of the family. Mikio was found at the bottom of the stairs, having suffered multiple stab wounds from a dangerously sharp sashimi knife. The brutality of the assault was evident. Part of the knife's blade was discovered lodged in his head, indicating it had broken during the attack. Yasuko and Nina were found upstairs, the mother's body draped over her daughter's. Both had been viciously stabbed, the severity of the wounds leaving Yasuko's bones visible. The following morning, Yasuko's mother, who lived next door, discovered the harrowing scene. The killer had cut the phone line at some point surrounding the attack, so when Yasuko's mother was unable to contact her daughter, she entered the house, only to find an entire family brutally murdered. The perpetrator, dubbed the Goldilocks murderer due to his bizarre actions post-murder, exhibited unnerving behavior as he lingered in the home after his crimes. He indulged in ice cream from the Miyazawa's fridge and used their computer around 1:18 a.m. He even left behind an unflushed toilet containing feces that later provided dietary clues as well as DNA. The amount of evidence the killer left was staggering. Blood-stained clothes, including a blood-soaked baseball shirt, a gray crusher hat, a cheap plaid scarf, and a jacket remained in the home. The killer had also abandoned black gloves, 2 black handkerchiefs, one used as a makeshift mask, and a gray and black fanny pack. Shoe prints at the scene revealed he wore size 11 white running shoes, a South Korean brand not sold in Japan. According to evidence, the killer likely remained in the family's home until dawn. Forensic analysis painted a detailed picture of the killer. Approximately 5 feet 6 inches tall, slender, right-handed, with type A blood, and between 15 and 35 years old. He had consumed a meal containing string beans and sesame seeds before the attack. DNA suggested mixed Asian and European ancestry, leaning towards Korean or Chinese heritage. Despite the extensive evidence, including fingerprints, bloodstains, and the unmatched DNA, the killer's identity remained elusive. Theories ranged from a random home invasion to a targeted attack, but no concrete motive was ever established. Close to 250,000 yen was found to be left untouched at the scene, which further deepened the mystery. In the aftermath, the Miyazawa house, initially destined for demolition, became a silent witness to the tragedy. Police investigations have spanned over 2 decades, involving over 280,000 investigators and following more than 16,000 tips. Yet the case remains unsolved. The Miyazawa family murder, with its chilling blend of brutality and mystery, continues to haunt Japan. The killer's identity, motive, and current whereabouts remain unknown, leaving a dark shadow over the quiet suburb of Setagaya. Number 6. The Dancing Plague of 1518. In July 1518, the streets of Strasbourg were witness to an extraordinary and unsettling spectacle. It began with just one woman, Frau Trophia, who stepped outside her home and, without music or apparent reason, began to dance. Her movements were neither joyful nor coordinated, but frantic, as if compelled by some invisible force. As hours turned into days, her solitary dance did not cease. Instead, it became a public display of uncontrolled and ceaseless motion. Imagine the scene. The cobbled streets of this medieval city, usually bustling with the everyday noise of commerce and chatter, now echoed with the singular, rhythmic thumping of one woman's feet. Crowds gathered, not to join in celebration or festivity, but out of curiosity and growing horror, as Frau Trophia continued to dance, her body racked with inexorable energy that showed no signs of waning. Then, as if the sight of one woman dancing to the brink of exhaustion was not strange enough, others began to join her. The dancing started slowly, but soon dozens of people, some sources claim hundreds, of all ages and from all walks of life, were caught in the same relentless grip of whatever madness had seized Frau Trophia. The streets of Strasbourg became a bizarre carnival of suffering, as people danced until they collapsed from fatigue, their feet bloody and bruised, their faces marked by an inexplicable mix of agony and ecstasy. Authorities, bewildered and desperate, decided to encourage the dancing, believing that the afflicted must continue until they could dance no more. Platforms were erected, musicians were hired, and the town was transformed into an open-air dance hall of despair. But the remedy was a catastrophe, as the dancing only intensified and the number of victims grew, with some dancers dropping where they stood from strokes or heart attacks. This was not revelry. This was a plague of dancing, a phenomenon defying explanation, which swept up the people of Strasbourg with an uncontrollable and ultimately fatal frenzy. This event was not isolated in the record of history. Several similar outbreaks were said to have occurred in medieval Europe. However, the Strasbourg epidemic was by far the largest and most well documented. The city's authorities were confounded by the crisis. Their initial prescription of more dancing to cure the afflicted was based on the advice of physicians who believed the disease was due to overheated blood that could only be alleviated through the dance itself. Theories about the cause of this bizarre epidemic have varied widely over the centuries. One of the more popular explanations is ergot poisoning, which occurs when rye bread, a staple of the diet at the time, becomes contaminated with a toxic fungus. Ergotamine, a compound produced by the fungus, is structurally similar to LSD and can cause hallucinations and convulsions. However, this theory fails to account for the victim's behavior. Rather than convulsions typical of ergotism, those afflicted in Strasbourg simply could not stop dancing. Psychological explanations have also been proposed, such as mass psychogenic illness, formerly known as mass hysteria. This theory suggests that the dancing was a collective stress response to the harsh conditions of life in the medieval period, including disease, famine, and the religious fervor of the times. Under this theory, Frau Trofia's initial dance could have been a physical manifestation of extreme stress or despair, which then spread to others due to the perfect storm of psychological stressors. Some cultural historians suggest that the dancing could have been a ritualistic or superstitious act, possibly related to ancient Greek and Roman festivals or a heretical cult. However, there is little evidence to support these claims, and they do not explain the physical exhaustion and deaths that resulted from the dancing. In recent times, other theories have surfaced, including that the dancing was a social phenomenon, a form of protest, or even an organized cult activity. But these lack substantial historical evidence and fail to fully explain the breadth and severity of the event. Number 5. The Lake Anjikuni Disappearance. On a bitterly cold November day in 1930, Canadian fur trapper Joe LaBelle arrived at the frozen shores of Lake Anjikuni. LaBelle, familiar with the welcoming Inuit community that lived there, was looking for food and shelter. But as he approached, he realized that an eerie silence enveloped the village. No children playing, no fires crackling, no voices carrying on the wind, just an unsettling, deathly quiet. LaBelle beached his canoe about 100 yards from the village and called out, expecting the usual warm greetings. Instead, 2 gaunt, starving huskies emerged, their desperation palpable. Nearby, the bodies of 7 more dogs lay lifeless, victims of starvation. LaBelle's sense of unease deepened. Drawing closer, he saw the remains of fires, with embers cold and lifeless. In one fire pit, a pot of charred food sat, suggesting a meal abandoned mid-preparation. The village stood empty. 6 elfskin huts, home to about 30 people, were eerily silent. LaBelle's heart pounded as he entered the nearest hut. He expected the worst, but found instead a haunting scene of daily life interrupted. Boots, parkas, half-sewn clothing, greasy iron pots, and abandoned cooking fires painted a picture of sudden departure. Fish and deer bones lay scattered, the only evidence of the once thriving community's sustenance. A rusted rifle leaned against a wall, a practical and valuable item, not likely to have been left behind if the villagers had fled voluntarily. In another hut, LaBelle discovered more food and weapons left untouched. A child-sized sealskin coat lay half-mended, the needle still in the fabric. It was as though time had frozen in the midst of everyday tasks, leaving behind a snapshot of an ordinary day that came to an abrupt halt. Puzzled and alarmed, LaBelle pondered why the villagers would have abandoned their homes with ample food and weapons at hand. Despite his exhaustion, the trapper dared not stay in the ghostly village. He hastened to inform the nearest authorities, spurring a series of investigations. The disappearance of the Lake Anjikuni village became a topic of intense debate. No signs of violence or struggle were found, ruling out theories of murder or abduction. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police discovered that the Inuit had been missing for almost 8 weeks by the time LaBelle arrived. But for what reason, they could only guess. During their investigation, the RCMP reported seeing mysterious, pulsating lights in the sky above the lake, adding a potentially paranormal or extraterrestrial layer to the mystery. In 1931, the RCMP concluded their investigation, dismissing the story as a fabrication due to the lack of evidence. Despite this, the legend of the vanished village of Lake Anjikuni endures, leaving many to wonder what might have happened to over 3 dozen people. Number 4. Bashir Khouchakji. Bashir Khouchakji sat in his small apartment in Washington, D.C., the phone buzzing incessantly in the background. The buzzing had terrorized his life for the past 9 years. It hadn't always been like this, but at times it had been much worse. His mind drifted back to 1974, to the streets of Beirut, where he had been raised. By this time, he was already an American citizen. He had returned to Lebanon with his wife, who had business there. That night, he had encountered a roadblock while picking his wife up from a party. He remembered the van, the armed men, the abduction. Captured by the PLO, the Palestine Liberation Organization, his captors had accused him of being a CIA agent, subjecting him to days of torture. It was an ordeal he barely survived, his sanity hanging by a thread as he grappled with hallucinations and despair. Returning to the United States hadn't brought solace to Bashir. Instead, a new kind of torment seemed to have been awakened. The threatening phone calls began a few years after his return from Lebanon, the caller's voice a chilling whisper. Sometimes it was silent breathing. Other times there were threats, but always the same underlying message. He would be killed. The calls followed him like a shadow, even as he tried to rebuild his life with new restaurants and new beginnings. But the terror didn't stop at the phone calls. It spilled over into his family's lives, his loved ones becoming targets of the same faceless menace. His wife, his friends, even his replacement at the restaurant, all of them drawn into the mystery enveloping him. And then there was Raj Tuli, his successor, whose son fell victim to a brutal attack. This in particular, Khouchakji took as a sign that the mysterious caller meant business. The caller's identity remained a mystery, the voice shifting curiously between that of a child and that of a grown man, thus lending a nickname to the caller, l'enfant. Bashir's mind raced with suspicions, memories of Beirut mingling with the present-day nightmare. Was it revenge for his abduction? A vendetta from his past come back to haunt him? Or perhaps something even darker, its motives unknown? Desperate for answers, Bashir turned to the authorities. But with no leads, they were powerless in the face of this masked villain. The FBI tapped his phone, recording thousands of calls, but the trail always led to dead end after dead end. Journalists probed, speculation swirled, and yet l'enfant remained elusive. In the end, Bashir found himself trapped in a cycle of paranoia and despair, his sanity slipping away. He sought refuge in psychiatric wards, hoping to escape the calls, but even there, he found no peace. The caller would still reach out to him multiple times a day. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the calls stopped, their mysterious cessation equally infuriating. Bashir's story had been the subject of a segment on the popular TV show Unsolved Mysteries shortly before they ceased. Perhaps l'enfant was scared off by the national publicity. Years passed. Bashir tried to move on and leave the nightmare behind him. But despite the absence of phone calls, l'enfant and his sinister games still play on his mind. Number 3. Sandra Crispo. That special New England autumn was beginning to fall over Hanson, Massachusetts, in September of 2019. 40 days had passed since Lena McMahon last spoke to her mother, who had mysteriously up and vanished. Each day that passed seemed to weigh more heavily. Lena often found herself replaying their last conversation. 54-year-old Sandra had recently moved closer to Lena to be near her grandchildren. She adored them and relished the time spent caring for her 3 grandsons while Lena worked as a nurse in nearby Boston. Sandra otherwise lived a quiet life and was a homebody, according to Lena. Their routine was comforting, predictable, until it wasn't. The morning of August 7th was the last time Lena saw her mother. She had stopped by Sandra's house to drop off the boys before heading to work, per their usual routine. Sandra had mentioned having car troubles, and since Lena was at work, another relative stepped in to help. They drove with Sandra and her grandsons to drop the car off at a mechanic's shop. Security camera footage showed Sandra entering a Cumberland Farms store before she was driven home. On Thursday, Lena received a call from the mechanic, who needed more parts for Sandra's car. Lena was at the beach with her boys and phoned her mother to relay the news, but Sandra didn't answer. When multiple calls went unanswered, Lena started to worry. Sandra's vehicle was in the shop, and she rarely went out. Where could she be? The next day, Lena drove to her mother's to drop off her boys as usual. When Lena arrived at Sandra's house, a deep sense of foreboding gripped her. Reflecting on the moment, she said that something felt terribly wrong. Usually, she'd ask the boys to unbuckle as they pulled into the driveway, but this time, she didn't. Instead, she approached the house alone and knocked. Sandra didn't answer. She looked through the windows. Many of the lights inside were turned on, but there was no Sandra. She went around the back of the house and found the door unlocked. Inside, Lena realized that some of Sandra's things were gone. Her shoes, her purse, yet the air conditioner was running. Unusual if Sandra had left the house. In the fridge, watermelon had been prepared for the boys. Sandra's dog, usually exuberant, lay quietly in a recliner. Everything was off. She filed a missing persons report, prompting an investigation by the Hanson Police Department. Police Chief Michael Miksch told Dateline, "There are no signs of foul play, nothing out of the ordinary at her house. We just don't know." Sandra didn't own a computer or cell phone, complicating the search. Police launched a campaign on social media, raising public awareness and sharing photos of Sandra, hoping someone had seen her. Local searches and countless tips yielded nothing. Lena remains convinced that a neighbor must have seen something. She knew her mother wouldn't disappear of her own accord. The uncertainty is excruciating, but Lena's resolve has never wavered. She has vowed to bring her mother home, no matter what it takes. Lena continues her search. To this day, Sandra remains missing. Any information regarding Sandra's case can be directed to the Hanson Police Department at 781-293-4625. Number 2. Deborah Wolfe. Deborah Ann Wolfe, known to loved ones as Debbie, embodied the warmth of a southern summer day. By the age of 28, she had moved from her home state of Arkansas to Fayetteville, North Carolina. where she lived in a lovely log cabin. Here, she cultivated her passion for healing as a nurse at the Veterans Administration Medical Center in Cumberland County. Debbie's compassion knew no bounds. Many remember her as a dedicated and gentle spirit, touching the lives of all who crossed her path. A columnist of the Fayetteville Times hailed her as a beacon of light, a dedicated nurse, a radiant soul, a cherished friend. Yet, in the winter of 1985, a day before Christmas, tragedy struck when Debbie Wolfe disappeared, seemingly into thin air. The first red flag was when Debbie failed to arrive at work. This was completely unlike Debbie, who was a consistent employee and not known to be late or miss a shift without calling ahead. Concern soon rippled through her family, and as dawn broke on the 27th of December, Debbie's absence grew alarming. Her mother, Jenny, accompanied by her husband, John, and a loyal friend, headed to Debbie's cabin for a wellness check. But the cabin stood silent, though her dogs, Morgan and Mason, remained in the yard. Inside the cabin, things were amiss. Her personal items seemed to be in disarray, which was not in line with Debbie's usually orderly ways. A nursing uniform lay discarded, and underneath her bed, Jenny discovered her daughter's purse, also out of place. To put it simply, the scene was odd and suspect. And to add to this scene, a mysterious and unfamiliar voice was heard on the answering machine, delivering a cryptic message. "Hey Deb, missed you here at work today. Just wondering how you're doing. If you're able to give me a call up here at the ward, I'm at... Or give me a call at home tonight. You've been out a lot of days. You make me worried when you miss another one. Just want to make sure you're okay. Bye." Jenny wondered about the implications of the message as the search for Debbie began. Time passed, yielding only more questions. Then, on the 31st of December, despair was found at the bottom of a nearby pond. Debbie's lifeless body was discovered in a rusty barrel. Yet, even in death, mysteries lingered. The police began to investigate the death as an accidental drowning, a slip and fall. But Jenny was sure foul play had been involved. Investigators decided to retrieve the barrel the day after removing her body, but when they returned for it, it was gone. Investigators even allegedly denied the existence of the barrel in the first place. This only added to the strange turns in the case. The autopsy further found the cause of death to be drowning, and there were no obvious signs of foul play. However, even this was suspect to some. Several of the telltale signs of drowning were missing, and there was only about half a teaspoon of water in Debbie's airway. Due to the cold water slowing decomposition, medical examiners were unable to determine exactly when Debbie died. Jenny was suspicious for a number of other reasons as well. Not only was the pond shallow and easy to walk out of, the clothes Debbie was found in weren't her own. They included shoes that were a men's size 6, brown corduroy pants that were too big for her, a bra that was the wrong size, and an army field jacket without a name tag. Two suspects, hospital volunteers who had repeatedly called and harassed Debbie, were questioned, including the one who Jenny believed left the cryptic voicemail on her phone. Each was cleared by police. The case is still officially considered an accidental drowning, though Debbie's loved ones remain determined to see justice prevail. Number 1. Cecilia Cabrera. The dark streets of Lemoore, California were lit by the neon glow of the Tachi Palace Casino. It was June 9th, 2016, and Cecilia Cabrera, a mother of 4, was captured on security footage in her last known moments, exiting the casino shortly before 1 a.m. In the footage, her dark gray Chevrolet Malibu glided away into the darkness. Hours later, the car was found engulfed in flames in an orchard 30 miles away. 6 months passed after that fateful night, and the mystery of Cecilia's disappearance began to unravel. Her husband, Francisco Valdivia, and another woman, Rosalina Lopez, were arrested and charged with Cecilia's murder. The complexities of Cecilia's life were known to those close to her. Her friend Ariana Flores often heard the complicated details of Cecilia's relationship with Valdivia. Though he and Cecilia were married, Valdivia did not live with Cecilia and their children, but instead with another woman. Whether this woman was Rosalina Lopez remains unclear. Ariana remembered Cecilia's desperation, her longing to break free from Valdivia, but according to Flores, Valdivia wouldn't let her divorce him. The investigation into Cecilia's disappearance was fraught with challenges. About a week after she vanished, Valdivia was arrested on unrelated drug charges. It was during this investigation that police discovered multiple marijuana grow sites he allegedly operated. He was set to be released on those charges, but now faced far graver accusations. Though Cecilia's body was never found, the sheriff's department hinted at significant forensic and digital evidence linking the pair to Cecilia's disappearance. Valdivia's use of his marriage to Cecilia to gain legal residency in the United States added a cold, transactional nature to Valdivia's intentions. Rosalina Lopez, who had been married to Valdivia in Mexico, added another layer of complexity to the story. For Cecilia's family, especially her 4 children, the nightmare was far from over. But the arrests of Valdivia and Lopez marked a pivotal step towards finding necessary closure. Though her body has still yet to be found, friends and family vow to see her story through to the end. Any information regarding Cecilia's case can be directed to Tulare County Sheriff's Department at 559-735-1880.